All righty. Welcome everyone to the Soldier Summit Special Service Special Service Public Meeting. We will begin with a public hearing regarding the final approval of the 2023 Soldier Summit Special Service District budget. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So made.
Motion.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, so made. Go ahead. I make a motion to go ahead and open the public hearing.
Okay, Spencer
And I'll
made the
second
motion.
the motion.
Tom
I'll
did
second
a-
that.
Tom seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, public hearing on the final approval of 2023 Soldier Summit Special Service District budget. We'll turn the time to Deneen.
Good morning. Just a little bit of an explanation. All of the political subdivisions of which the Special Service District is considered to be a subdivision of the state is required to go through a public budgeting process. And we first adopt a tentative budget, which the board did in August. And then this is the final budget that is allowed to have public input before it may be adopted by the board. So on the schedule, you can see that there have been no changes to the tentative budget that was adopted in August. And essentially the 2023 proposed budget is pretty much in line with the existing 2022 budget. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the proposed 2023 budget.
Are there any questions?
I have none. It's always nice to see balanced checkbooks.
Yeah.
I also don't have any.
I don't have any either. So, do we have any staff that would like to make a comment or any concerns there? Okay. So do we do a motion on this? To accept it?
I'll make a motion that we adopt
Excuse me, hold it just a
or
minute,
close,
Tom.
excuse me. I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Tom, hold on just a minute. Do we have any public comment? I failed to ask that, I apologize.
On just the budget?
On just the budget, yes. Okay, it appears there's no public comment. We'll entertain your motion now, Tom.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
I will second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passed. Did there not have to be a motion to accept the budget? Just a question, Tim.
No, there has.
It's the first item on.
Oh,
where we're
sorry,
just-
I'm sorry, excuse me. I was looking at.
Was there to be a motion to accept the budget?
It's your agenda, item number 1.
Oh, okay,
Sorry,
right
yeah.
here on the next agenda. All right, my apology. I don't do this very much, so please bear with me. Okay, we have closed the public meeting, go into our regular agenda now. Approve and authorize the signing of a resolution approving the 2023 budget for Soldier Summit Special Service Districts. This requires a motion.
Is there a resolution number for that, Mike?
One hasn't been issued yet.
Yeah.
I'm informed that it has not been issued yet.
It's not issued until after it's voted upon.
It's not issued until it's voted upon, Spencer.
Okay. Sorry, we usually have to include that in our motions, but I would make a motion that we go ahead and approve the budget as presented.
Okay,
And I can second the adopting agenda item number 1.
okay, there's been a motion to accept and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Number 2 on the budget is approval of the minutes from the August 16th, 2022 Soldier Summit Special Service District meeting. Alice, do you have any comment on that, or? Okay, we need a vote on that to accept, approve. We need a motion.
Okay. I have no comments to make on it. I can support it, and so I'll make a motion that we approve and adopt item number 2.
Okay,
I'll go ahead and second that motion.
all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes have been approved. Review of financial statements. Deneen, do you have something for us on there?
Sure. So there's a packet of 3 financial statements. The first is a budget to actual, and then we have a balance sheet, and then there's a schedule of expenditure, a statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, which is commonly referred to as an income statement. The financial statements are on track with the budget. The largest source of one of the larger sources of revenue is the property taxes, which we will be receiving in the next few months. We don't receive that revenue until the end of the year. So, like I said, everything is on track with the budget to actual. As far as the balance sheet and the income statement go, the district is in a favorable financial position, positive cash balances and positive fund balances. So, again, I'd be happy to answer specific questions, but
Thank you, Deneen. Any questions on the financials? Okay. That does
I
not.
don't have any.
Tom, do you have any questions?
I don't know.
Okay. That does not need a vote. We'll go on to item number 4 on our agenda. That's to review, approve, and authorize payment of invoices and other current obligations for professional services, operations, maintenance, and other expenses. Deneen, do you have?
yes. So the only payment that needs to be approved by the board right now is a payment of $7,127.28 for water right legal services. The board had previously approved the contract, and those are the payments that have been made to date.
Okay, so we need approval on that. 7,000, what was it?
$127.
$127 and a few cents, maybe. So we need to have a motion on that to make
Is
that.
that item number 4?
Item number 4, yes.
I'm looking at the whole list, and I missed it. It's right on the very top. Yeah, no, absolutely. I can make a motion that we approve that, yes.
Okay,
I will second that motion.
so there's been a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 5 is review and approve or deny outstanding receivables, past due accounts, and place or remove liens and take necessary corrective action. Deneen?
Sure. So for the information of the board, we do have one lien that's currently outstanding. And then we actually had 2 requests to waive fees. One happened to come to me, so it's on this agenda item, and then there's a separate agenda item for a second request. But there's a request to waive fees for $614. And I included the letter with the system, but essentially the issue was that I believe there was some work being done on the property, and possibly they had something happened with the water. And there were actually 2 months that there were unusually high water bills, but they weren't notified about it until August. And what the customer indicated, if they had been notified sooner, they could have turned it off, and then they wouldn't have had the second month. So they paid the first month and are asking for the second month to be waived.
I did read the letter.
Yeah, I read that letter.
Richard, do you have any enlightenment for us on that? Okay. Well, it appears that it was, the county did not respond in a timely manner.
Yeah, I don't think that they knew about it. That's what, if they would have known about the high July.
Yeah, the letter says, I guess they had, 20,000 gallons of water. And the owner went over there, came back after a couple days and saw that the valve was on. So it has been running previous to him arriving there, evidently.
Yeah, isn't this a letter where they said they had to dig down 9 feet to the water line?
Yeah.
I personally don't have a problem with approving some leniency on that. But Commissioner Solomon, how do you feel?
I'm happy to approve the waiver on that particular property, yes.
Is this
Spencer?
the first time we've ever had to waive a fee on this property?
As far as I know, yes, but hold on and I can look it up really quick.
I'm in favor of it as long as it's not a repeat offender, I guess.
Yes, they have never had any fees waived.
Yeah, this is the first
Okay.
one.
Well, then I would make a motion.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd go ahead and make a motion that we waive these fees for this time.
Okay,
And I can second that motion.
okay, so there's been a motion to approve leniency there and as discussed, and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, the next item on our agenda is accept the selection of the selection committee and approve the contract with the selected firm for water system related engineering services. Richard.
Richard Nilsson, Utah County Public Works. We were tasked with putting out a request for proposals for engineering services for the district. We put that out and received 9 responses from 9 different firms, all very well qualified. We had a selection committee that went through each of those and unanimously came up with the recommendation to go with Sunrise Engineering. They're primarily based out of Fillmore, but have a local office here in Springville as well. And so what we would recommend is that the board approve the selection of Sunrise Engineering and approve the contract with them to do engineering-related services. This would be a 3-year contract, and it would be as needed. It will be for the design of the lines that'll go down into the old town site, things that are done through we have some ARPA funding that's available for the district that will be doing some work this next year. So, any questions for me?
Is this part of the second will, Richard?
It would tie in with the second well as well. Yes.
Okay. I was just surprised I didn't see a document attached to this particular agenda item.
And I thought that Robert Baxter was going to do that, but if he didn't, I apologize for that. So,
Any other questions?
How much is the contract for?
it's not a specific amount. It's a fee schedule, so it's based on an as needed, and they'll charge
Right.
Based on their fee schedule. So we just have a list of fees on different individuals that would be in the company in the different roles. So.
Okay. I'm riding a little blind on this one, but the fees are pretty much on the line with what we've seen
The fees
in the
are
past.
in order. Yep, they're in the range that were with the 9 firms we looked at. Sunrise was, I would say, a little below mid-range of what the 9 firms' different rates were. So they're not the
Okay.
lowest, but they're lower than the mid-range.
Okay.
So the fee schedule's already been established.
Yes, it was in the document they provided. So
All right. Any other questions?
Are you allowed to email us that document?
I'm sorry, say that again, Spencer.
Are you allowed to email us that document?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. I am totally okay, and I would make the motion that we approve them. I would like to just review that, look over that document sometime if you'd send it to me.
Yep. We'll send it out to all of you.
Okay, we accept
Okay,
that
thank you.
Great.
motion,
And I can-
Spencer. So,
I'll second.
Tom, did you make a second?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so there's been a motion to accept Sunrise with a second, to accept Sunrise Engineering with a second, and all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Motion passed. Item number 7 is discuss water rights report prepared by Hanson, Allen, and Luce Engineers. Richard, would you like to introduce, gentlemen? Thank you.
Yeah, and a few months ago, the board approved a contract with Hanson Allen Luce to look at water rights and other water-related items for the district. We have a report that's been provided for us, and we have Delmas Johnson, some of his associates here. I'm going to turn the time to Delmas, and he can lead where he's going to go with his team. So.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, gentlemen. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Richard, for the introduction. Again, my name is Delmas Johnson with Hanson Allen Luce, and we provided a technical memorandum to report on our findings to date for the district towards the end of October, as I recall. And so I just want to give you a brief overview of what that included, and then you're free to ask us any questions. I've got Logan Riley here with me, with Riley Water, who's a part of our team, and also Brian Andrew behind me as well. So in essence, we took a look at the water rights associated with the district's well. So at this point, it's a sole source of water, and there is a dedicated right owned by the district that provides that water, but there are also some additional rights that have multiple owners, including the Soldier Summit Recreation and Development Company and Darren and Melanie Dewsnup. So there's joint ownership on those rights. And we did some quantification and an assessment of risk, because it appears that these water rights historically were used for irrigation. And they, from what we can determine and assess, it has been some period of time since these water rights were used and put to beneficial use. And so that creates some risk for those owners who are not public entities, not Soldier Summit Special Service District. In 2008, the state legislature passed a bill, HB 51, which provided some immunity to a public entity who's holding water rights for future beneficial use. And so I can have Logan speak to that more, but therefore, those rights held by the district do not have a risk of forfeiture associated with them, whereas privately held rights can have that risk. And that risk is not made manifest often until you try and do something to modify the right with the state engineer. And so anyway, we just wanted to disclose that risk to the privately held portions of those rights. There are 2 wells. There's the original Agard well, which is after the name of the original property owner there. That Agard well is quite old. We believe it was constructed in the 1950s, but there is not a driller's log to document that. Then there were more recently, we believe 15 to 17 years ago, there was an additional well constructed by the district, but we could not find a log for that one either. But that second well, or more recently constructed well, is providing the water for the district at this time. It is equipped with a pump, and that is what provides water to the storage tanks and to the system, and is providing water to the users on the system. So we made several recommendations in our memo that we really need the district should further investigate the condition of these wells, to document where they're completed, the depths where the screens or the perforations are, probably do a pump test to assess the performance, since we don't have any of that record that normally would be included in a driller's log. And then we also made reference to the need for an additional source once the district achieves 100 service connections. Currently there's 93. And the Division of Drinking Water, the State Division of Drinking Water rules require a redundant second source once 100 service connections are achieved.
Could I ask a question right there?
Sure.
Are those connections just specific to the Soldier Summit development, or do they extend over across the road to the Soldier Summit city that's across the road?
This would include any active service connections that the district is servicing. So whatever connections are on the north side of Highway 6, those would be included
Included, okay.
in that, yes.
Thank you.
We provided some recommendations in moving forward for a second well, and some piping improvements to augment improved delivery over to the north side of Highway 6. And then our memo also addressed some of the typical operational costs that the district is experiencing annually to operate the system.
Okay,
Logan, is there anything you'd like to add on the water rights?
I don't think so. I think it's important to know that.
Richard, we don't do normal testing of the sites for water usage?
What do you mean by normal testing?
Well, let me pick a better phrase. Do we do any rigor testing?
We do water quality testing that's required by the Division of Drinking Water, but that's typically all that we do up there.
Okay. Okay. He's recommending that we do additional tests for the uses of individuals who are using that the properties that have not been doing. Is that correct?
A couple of things that I think what you're asking, Commissioners, there's the privately held water rights that are associated with the well, that I think that's what Delmas had said, there was a potential risk of those water rights being in jeopardy. We don't do anything with those because they're not district water rights. And typically,
Okay.
we don't look at, what water the folks are using. It's just what goes through the meter. We bill them for it.
Okay. Okay.
Logan,
Yes.
go ahead.
Logan Riley. So Delmas mentioned that the district does have water rights right now that are in the well, that are good. They were certificated 5 or 6 years ago. That's about 38 acre feet. There's an additional about 50 acre feet that the district won't be subject to the forfeiture non-use issues, but they should probably at some point in the near future file a change application, move it to the correct well location, correct the use, correct the place of use.
Logan, can you say that again, what you just said there on this?
Yeah, so right now there's about, what did I say, 38 acre feet that the district has that's good, it's certificated in the well. There's an additional around 50 that is not in that same well right now. It's in the old Agard well, and it hasn't been moved to the district's new well that's being used up there. So at some point the district needs to file a change application to correct the well location, correct the place of use, and also the nature of use to municipal use up in the district. But they should be able to get around that 50 acre feet.
Okay. I think I got that. And can we comply with that, Richard, when we in the process of putting in that second well in the water lines?
Yeah, we'll work with Hanson Allen Luce to make sure that we're filing the appropriate documentation with the state.
Okay.
Okay.
James McClure, Utah County resident. I've got one thing I want to ask about. You talk about the first well. I'd like to know where the first well is and how much water's being used from it.
And that was 15 to 17. Oh, that was the Agard well?
Yeah. Do you know of another well?
If you let him
Do you-
respond to that.
Yeah.
So the original Agard well, named after the former property owner, constructed this well as best as we can determine the early 1950s. We can see where change applications were approved to do that at that time. As I recall, about 1952. And we do know because an investigation was done on that Agard well in the year 2000. and they determined the depth of 667 feet, as I recall. However, there was no screens or perforations in the well casing. It just had an open bottom. So the only water that can access the well comes through the bottom of the casing. And currently that well is not equipped with a pump, but it does flow artesian about 20 gallons per minute, except for those times when the district well might pull down the aquifer and stop that from flowing. But when the district well is not pumping, as best as we could determine, that Agard well is flowing about 20 gallons per minute, but is not being used. It just runs down to the east to a couple ponds, storage ponds.
Would you describe the location of the two wells? That's another question.
The two wells are very close to each other. They're probably 70 feet apart. And the Agard well is to the east of the district well.
East of it.
There's one well up there. And do you know where another well is? Do you know where another well runs water out of the ground?
I've not looked at the two spots, so I don't know.
When we were up there near the end of September, we documented some photographs. There were two well casings that we observed within the fenced area for the district's wells, and that included the older Agard well to the east.
Wouldn't that be the one that's running the artesian now?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
The artesian well, James McClure again. There's only one pipe that goes in the ground and it's got a pump on it. It does run an artesian factor, but it goes into the holding tank for Soldier Summit, then off to the side. They're not a separate well casing. It's, right?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I guess there's some question on that, but we can certainly go up and inspect it and look at it, see if they're there. Obviously, if you found them, then they're there, so. Any questions? We really appreciate this work that you've done, by the way. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Any other questions? This does not require a vote. We appreciate the report. I think we've all received it, so we have it. I don't understand it all. I'm going to have to get somebody to help me understand a lot of it, but did you have some comment, Robert? Okay. Please state your name when you come up.
Yes, Robert Baird, property owner. Yeah, grateful to have someone. I mean, it sounds like these things are hard to track down. So just as, I'm curious if you so that's helpful to know what the county owns, the water rights. Is the Soldier Summit Recreation, is that what it's called? That's a private, is that the HOA? Or what is that private firm?
I'm not sure.
And I'm curious if you know, and if we're allowed to know how many water rights they own, and then how many water rights Darren owns. And are his assigned to the artesian well or the other well? I'm just curious if you have any of that information.
So these other rights, so there's one right in the district's well currently. These other rights are adjacent and nearby, but they're adjacent and they're not actually in the district well. And there's two other rights that there's shared ownership in. And the other owners include Darren and Melanie Dusnup, Soldier Summit Recreation and Development Company. I interpreted that as the HOA, but I'm not positive. And then Soldier Summit Special Service District. And of those two rights, the district owns 20.38% of those two rights. Soldier Summit Recreation and Development Company owns 14.62% of those rights, so a smaller portion. But Darren and Melanie Dusnup own 65%, the balance of those two other additional rights.
Is that? Sorry. Thank you again. I'm just trying to understand. So those rights, are those related to the same 38 and 50 acre feet you talked about? assigned to the two wells?
No, they're separate from those.
Okay, and are those rights in a value of an acre feet, or it's a percentage?
They're both. It's a percentage of the total. There's also an acre foot attributed to each other.
Okay, and so of the 38 feet and the 50 feet that are owned by the county, then you're talking about another 100%. What acre feet are assigned to that 100%? Do you see what I'm trying to
You
say?
mean 100%?
Well, you mentioned that the
You're
deuce.
asking what's the value of the two other rights that aren't associated yet?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think,
And are those rights not assigned to the well?
so there's,
Currently.
Not currently. Okay.
yeah, currently there's, the district owns one right that's associated with the
And I guess
well.
that's maybe what many of us lay
And-
people are confused about is rights and
Okay.
acre feet.
Yes, so, right now it's in percentage because the water rights are in a supplemental group and it hasn't clearly been defined. So when I say around 50 acre feet, because that could change a little bit once we go through a declaration of beneficial use process. And without getting into all the weeds of that, around 50 acre feet is what the county has. Now, if there's two wells, which maybe we're not 100% sure now, but if there was two, one, the district has the 38 acre feet in the one. That's what they have. The other two that they have interest in are still in the Agard well, which is why they need a change application to move it into their well and to correct the other issues. Now, the DUSNIP and the maybe HOA, other LLC, it's a percentage, right? I mean, there's percentage of the rights that are left. What's
In the Agard?
in the Agard, yeah. Now, what that is, we don't know. I mean, I could give you an estimate in a little bit, but we don't know, and we won't know for sure until this declaration of beneficial use process is done, which has to happen for a change application. It has to happen. So there is stuff in these two separate wells that might not be two separate wells, but are showing on the division's website as two different wells.
So I guess that means the 50 acre feet roughly, we're guessing.
You gotta go to the mic, 'cause the others can't hear you.
Again, thank you so much, because I think everybody wants to know. Like, I think the HOA would love to know what water they have. So if I understand, it sounds like what you're guessing, roughly 50 acre feet in the Agard well, whether or not where it is 14%.
That is the 20-ish%, yeah. But that's it's going into the weeds deep, but there's
Yeah.
4 rights. 2 of them have the district, 2 of them don't, right? All 4 have DUSNIP and what we're assuming is the HOA.
So the HOA, how many acre feet is that, roughly?
That's what I'm not sure. I haven't looked
Okay.
at the total number there. So.
I mean, do you have a guess? I mean, I understand that
My guess will be wrong.
I know there's a conversion
It's a
factor.
lesser amount than the district's ownership is.
Okay.
Yeah.
they're briefly, in our report, those are briefly summarized in the
Yes.
table.
Where's not about the well, right?
Okay. James McClure, about the second well. When you looked at the second well, is this 2 pipes coming out of the ground that drains into that little ditch?
There's 2 well casings, yes,
There's
extending
2.
out of the ground.
Okay. The system, the way I understand it, there has to be water running through the new well that was done 20 years ago. If they start those pumps to service the water for the tanks, that water stops because it's coming out of the tank, okay, that makes up the water for Soldier Summit. So there aren't 2 separate wells. That water you've seen coming out of the ground in those 2 pipes is not a well, it's an overflow, okay, for that tank, which has to be artesian water. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I'm just reconciling with that, the fact that I saw 2 well casings, so.
Okay, well, it's really important we see that there's only 1 well up there, that the water comes out of the ground, artesian or pumped. That second well, I'm sure was abandoned a long, long time ago. That water that you've seen, the water comes out of the well is artesian water. Then it goes into the holding tank for Soldier Summit, and if that's full, it goes over into that creek. As soon as they start pumping the water into the system, that water will stop. I guarantee it.
Sure.
And if Grady was here, he would tell us exactly the same thing. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, James. So in 1952, the Agard well did a change application? Do you know what that application was for, or?
Well, now you're making me go back to my research, and I'm trying to recall exactly. I just know that there was, they did file, it was an appropriation, a new appropriation for irrigation, and it was for a new well, new groundwater source at that time.
Okay.
And as best we can determine, it would have been a cable tool well, so they drove the casing in, probably to the hit refusal. But there is no, and most wells have a screened or a perforated portion that allows the groundwater to come in. This does not have that. It just has an open bottom. So the only water that can enter comes through the bottom.
And the report says that that is 667 feet deep.
Correct. Wow. Yeah, and in 2000, Rod Mund, who's a driller, run a camera down and documented that depth.
Okay. Okay, any other questions?
No, this has been very thorough. Thank you.
Scott, why don't you introduce yourself?
Scott Kimball, just resident up there. I was just wondering if you could speak to, I know there's a lot of angst around, that's why we're had you guys come, and a lot of angst around the shares and water and what's available. I don't know if you could speak to transferring shares in and out, or rights in and out, kind of how that works. I know there's been some movement to purchase rights outside the district and then transfer them in. So I don't know if you did any research in that, or if you can speak to how that works or is approved or calculated.
I'll start. So,
And Logan, before you start,
Yeah.
added to that question that Scott just asked, and I think, Scott, you serve on the board of directors.
I do, but I'm not here representing the board.
Okay. Anyway, I'm wondering how it's going to work with the second well and how enough shares will be transferred or given to that well. And if you could maybe address both of those.
and are we talking a second well to the one the district already has? Or is just this current one?
Yes.
A new well, okay.
It'd be a brand new well.
Yeah, so if the district decides to drill a new well to go along with the current one, a change application will be filed by the district to just add a well to its existing well. And I don't think there'll be any issues for the state to approve that. That should be a pretty simple change application. Now, when water that is not immediately up there or already in one of those wells is moved up there, those are a little more difficult change applications. And it can be done. I mean, it has been done. It sounds like it. Now, the tricky thing might be for what the owner of the actual physical well, if they allow that to happen, right? If the owner of the well is okay with people moving other water rights into their well for their own use. And that, I'm not sure does the district have a policy on allowing that or not allowing that? But it is possible. It's just the owner of the physical well needs to be okay with someone else connecting to it and using it and pumping it. And I'm sure there's some sort of fee structure set up to do that. But the division of water rights, I mean, clearly they're okay with it.
If the district does allow that to occur, it would be our recommendation that that right be conveyed to the ownership of the district. So the district has full control of its own well. And there's not other water right owners with rights to that well. It just creates a potential for a lot of trouble. And it's a lot cleaner if there goes through a report of conveyance and the ownership is changed and potentially be segregated from whatever ownership there was in the past.
Thank you. Richard, did you have any comments?
Maybe just a clarification on a question you asked, Mike, on the second well and water rights. I think one thing to maybe kind of keep in mind is the second well is not necessarily tied to having additional water rights. That's a division of drinking water requirement based on the number of connections, so that you have a redundant source. So the water rights, and I think we'll get into this more with our team here as we look at it. I think the water rights are sufficient, or they had the ability to become sufficient, but it's having a redundant source on the two wells, the new well we're talking about drilling. So it's not necessarily tied specifically to having more water rights to do that. Does that make sense?
Yes,
So,
it does.
did I say that right? Yes, okay. Okay, that's all I've got.
Brilliant as always.
Oh, and Richard, about having someone be able to come in with water rights, what is the district's position on that?
We don't have an official position that I'm aware of, but I would second what Delma said, and I think it would be wise that we have it to where the water rights that are in the well that we operate and maintain should be district water rights.
So another question I have is the HOA has this percentage of water rights. Would it be wise to make an application to have those water rights put into the district?
And I think it's an assumption right now that the Soldier Summit Recreation and Development Company is the HOA. I don't know if that's...
I guess that's the assumption. I don't know.
That would be something we'd need to clarify.
Okay,
Yep.
very good. Any other questions? Robert, you have another comment?
We just got to get the $7,000 worth, right? Of all this research. One of the board members of the HOA, the Sudweeks, he had done some research and he found somewhere in county documents or somewhere it was listed that if somebody lived up there full time, they were required to get, I think it was a half a share of water.
Quarter, I think it's a quarter.
Do you remember hearing this? There's something somewhere. And I'm just curious if in the research that was done, because I feel like it'd be good to know what that says so that you as a board would know how to create a policy of what to do. Because if we are up there and required to get a quarter of an acre, do we donate it to the county, to the HOA? You know, it's just not clear. And I mean, and the elephant in the room is me, right? I'm the water user up there that we're talking about. And not knowing that this was an option and trying to find workable solutions, I have bought 2 acre feet. The state engineer did assign it to that area, but again, it can't be used. Well, I mean, it's at the sole discretion of the well owners because, yeah, like was mentioned, I can't just pump on someone else's property. And so it's kind of like in the wings there if this board decides to somehow use it or create a policy or so I mean, I know there's a lot of questions here that I'm sure you board members have, but that's a question I have though, is if we are required to have it, there must be some provision of how to handle that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know of a provision. I've seen that in our policies.
I'll try to clarify it, and hopefully I won't screw it up too bad. So my understanding is with the development that took place up there, it was intended to be recreational homes, summer homes, if you will.
Right.
With that, the state engineer's office has a amount of water rights that are assigned per recreational home versus a different amount that would be for a full-time residence. So my understanding would be is if one of those homes up there was going to be converted from a part-time residence to a full-time residence, there would have to be additional water rights brought in, because that was not what was done when the development was first created. It was created based on the summer home, recreational home allotments. So the water rights would have a different quantity tied to them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Per unit. Maybe just to clarify Robert's comment there, if there were to be water that was dedicated, it would not be to the county and it would not be to the HOA, it would be to the Soldier Summit Special Service District. That's the entity that has the water rights and operates the system. It's not Utah County, it's not Wasatch County, it's not the HOA. So this, for clarification on that. You guys, anything else on that? No. Okay.
Thank you, Richard. Very well explained. Any other comments, questions? Tom, Spencer, you okay to move on?
I'm good to move on.
We'll go.
Yeah, I'm good to move on too.
All right, we'll go to number 8, discuss the reorganization of the Soldier Summit Special Service District as a local district. Tim?
Yes, thank you, Mike. Tim Taylor from the County Attorney's Office. So in 1984, the Soldier Summit Special Service District was created. And then in approximately 2013, the state legislature passed legislation that would allow this to be converted to a local district. Basically, the only difference between a special service district and a local district is just who's the governing board. And so right now, the Soldier Summit Special Service District was created by the Utah County Commission. They are the sole entity that have the ability to reorganize this into a local district. And so we have been doing research. We have, the county commission has initiated a reorganization resolution, which has passed. And so we are in the process of noticing this up. And we intend to bring that in front of the county commissioners at the latter part of this year to determine whether or not they want to approve that. And if they do, individuals, there will be 3 board of trustees from the service district that will be on that board, and that this special service district will no longer exist. But all the rights, powers, authorities, ownership, everything that the service district has at this point will just be conveyed to the local district. So it's just taking one hat off and putting it on to another entity.
Does that mean we're all fired?
Yes, Mike, it does. Well, if the commission approves it. And so it, once again, it's not the special service district that has that authority either. Only the entity that initially created it, according to the statute, has that ability to go ahead and decide whether they want to do that. And there will be a public hearing, and they'll receive input, and then at that point, they can make the decision.
Thank you.
And its members will come from residents of that area then?
Yes, sir, it will. And so, and that's what we have in, that's what's stated in the statute, and also says in the proposed resolution. So any individuals who are interested in wanting to be considered, our notice indicates that they should go ahead and submit a letter of interest to the Board of Commissioners, to the county commissioners, and they can go ahead and they'll be the ones who are going to choose those individuals, Commissioner.
Thank you, Tim. What further steps need to be taken then to get this down the road to where it can be implemented?
Right now, we're just in the noticing process right now. And so we anticipate either the 21st or the 28th of December, that will be in front of the county commissioners.
Okay, thank you. Any questions there? Comments?
No.
We need to go back to number 7. Evidently, we missed a public comment from David Sudwicks. David, if you're there, please feel free to make your comments. Hopefully we can hear you.
Hey, Mike, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So my question is, of course, Mr. Baird is the elephant in the room, and I've read his state engineer report so that he could have the water right transferred. It's transferred to his lot. It's not transferred to the well at the bottom of the hill or the old Agard well. It's transferred to his lot, and it very, very specifically states that he is not to use that water until his own well has been approved on his lot. And it is my understanding that he has filled a pond on his lot with the county's water after the county and the board asked him not to. I would like to know if the board or the county is going to send that information to the state engineer so that the state engineer can more better address the situation.
Good questions, David. Tom, Spencer, do you have any comments? Could you hear David okay?
I heard him fine. I'm interested to see if there's anything at the Public Works or the other representatives can address this.
Richard, do you want to?
We could certainly send information up to the state engineer's office at the direction of the board. Realistically, at this point, we as county staff are the board staff in this instance, so whatever direction we get from the board is what we would take up. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And we'd work with the attorney's office to make sure we've got the appropriate language, and also with our consulting team as well.
Okay.
Robert, you had further
Thanks,
comments?
Richard. I don't have any.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank, again, Rob Baird, property owner. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, water rights are confusing, right? And part of what's challenging is SSD, Special Service, I can't get it right. It overlaps two water areas. Is that what they're called? Water areas. There's Area 51 and Area 90. Which one's on the Utah County side? 51. Okay. There's 51, and then the Price side is 91. 91 is where all the wells are. It's where all the water rights are. It's actually pretty easy. Not easy, but you can buy a water right in 91. So I purchased a water right in 91. And I can't assign that water right to my property in 53?
51.
Thank you, 51. You can't cross areas with a water right. I can't buy it here and then drill a well over on my property. It's not allowed. I think you can, but you have to be special, and they'd have to approve it, and they don't approve it. And you really can't buy any water rights. There aren't really any to buy on 51. And even if you buy them on 51, you have to buy them within, and this is I've worked with a state engineer, you have to buy them within like 10 miles, and it has to be an existing well in use that someone would want to sell me. It's virtually impossible to do. So what I did is I did buy it in the Price side, and it was assigned to the GPS location of this well. And the county actually fully knows in all the documents, it actually shows the pond. They know we're actually putting it in the pond. So it approves. So what I actually have approval for is to drill a well in the A-guard spot, even though I can't really do that. And that water would then be pumped and used specifically on my property. So Dave is 100% right. There's 2 GPS locations located on this. And in the application, everything, it actually shows the pond, it shows everything. I mean, I'm not hiding any. So the state engineer already completely knows all of this, that the water right is assigned to the GPS location on the Price side, and the state engineer has approved it out of that aquifer that it can handle it. Whether the well can or not, that's up to engineers, but the state engineer has said it's okay to be assigned to that aquifer. And the state engineer says it's okay to be pumped and used on my property, which is on 51. Totally confusing. I mean, and this took it like a year and hours and just stuff to even get that. So I recognize the confusion here. That's why I said this is all as clear as the mud at the bottom of the well, right? And so I think we're really grateful to have these professionals to help us understand. Did I
Yes.
state that clear?
One's a point of diversion, the other is the place of use.
Perfect.
They are separate.
Thanks for making that clear.
So I don't know that answered my question, because unless he has written permission from the county to pump water out of that to his property to use in the pond, it seems to me that the state engineer has a very specific reclusion process. In other words, if he does something like that without having it approved through the owners of the well and the owners of the equipment, then that water right needs to go back to where it came from.
Rob Baird. Again, I'm so sorry. I mean, I don't know that you want this to happen here. Dave's completely right. That water right has been purchased and is assigned, but cannot be used. The water I have used is literally just as a property owner. It runs through my valve. I pay crazy amounts. You don't even the same water I use in my house in Mapleton, that's $300 a month, is $2,000 a month up there. And so the water that I've used through my meter has nothing to do with these water rights. These water rights are just an option that this board could allow me to donate or somehow, make some arrangements. And again, I'm really just trying to do what we're supposed to do. It's just not clear. If someone's going to be up there full time, use more than a summer home, we're supposed to make up the difference. And so while that process isn't clear, I'm attempting to do that. But Dave's completely right. It cannot be used right now because the property owner has not accepted that right. So it's approved by the state engineer. The aquifer can handle it because that's what our ultimate fear here is water, right? That's what we're all scared of. We're scared. The board president's scared because she ran out of water once and she thought it's because I used too much. And so we're all scared. And so at least the state engineer has said the aquifer can handle it, but that doesn't mean it can be used. And David's 100% right in all those things that he said.
Okay, thank you, Robert.
And I mean, maybe just so I don't have to get up again, I would encourage this council here too. One of the difficult things about measuring water up there is it's so hard. Someone has to physically go up there. Where the water rate is so high, really only affecting me, a sole property owner. I watch that per gallon. And when you measure it, because the fees were set on a monthly basis, we had one of the water periods this summer was actually 5 weeks instead of 4. And then the next one was 3. And, I get it. I mean, it's like up on a mountain. It's hard to get up there. So we had a 5-week measuring period and then a 3-week measuring period. Doesn't make a difference to anybody unless you're paying $2,000 a month. It really does because, I'm planning on it. And I literally have a camera at the meter to see when the county comes and measures it. So I know I've reset. But it would be nice from just my perspective that we try to hit it, monthly within reason. But you make a week difference. And when you're paying $5 1,000 gallons, it can actually make a big swing. Yeah.
No, well taken. Thank you. Tom and Spencer, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any.
You responded, David.
I don't.
David had some good questions there. I think it's one of the things that needs to be addressed, and we'll get it on our future agenda to address these important issues. Anything else that needs to be addressed? Number 8, I think we did number 8. Next on the agenda is to set a date, time, and location for the next board meeting. 10 a.m., February 21st, 2022, here at the Utah County Commissioner Chambers office. Need a vote for that. We need a motion.
I can make a motion to set
I think
the
it's
date, time.
2023. I apologize.
Excuse me. Did I say?
Yeah.
Oh, it has 2020.
It does, yeah.
I just read
We made
the
a
notes
mistake
here.
there.
It's 2023. That is a correction.
Yeah, and I can support that motion of that date, February 21, 2023.
Okay. Commissioner, thank you for that motion. Spencer, do you want to second it?
I can go ahead and second that. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. I think that's it. I think the meeting's done. Thank you, everyone.
Any additional public comment I think we have
Oh.
at this point?
Public comments, that's correct. Any further comments?
Scott Kimball, resident of the county and up there. I guess I just want to make one final comment with respect to how I appreciate the board. Thank you for the work that they do. I guess I just wanted to maybe voice my dissent from being included with everybody who's scared about the water. My outlook is not being scared of running out. My outlook or my family's outlook is from a sense of stewardship or being wise with what we use and not necessarily using what's, just because there's a lot available, using all of it, saying, hey, let's be wise in how we use our water, how we use our resources, both up there at the summit and down here in the county. So I guess, I would hope that as it switches to a local district or whatever, that would continue to be kind of the mindset with the board. It's not saying, hey, can we maximize our usage of this pie? But let's look at, are we using this pie in a responsible way, and making sure that it's here now, it's here in the future. Not being scared of the future, but being aware of the future and making sure that we're planning for it. So anyway.
Thank you, Scott. And I would like to go on record to echo what Scott just said. I feel the same way as a board member here on this board. Any other public comment? If there are none, I will call for a final motion of adjournment.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Spencer.